Emily Elizabeth, and I'm the host of the What Fulfills You podcast, a show for and about individuals always seeking to be their best selves. On this show, we talk all about building the mindset, finding the right careers, creating meaningful relationships, and so much more. Welcome to the What Fulfills You podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the What Fulfills You podcast. My name is Emily Elizabeth. I'm your host. And for today's solo episode, I am diving into my simple morning routine habits that I have kept consistent throughout my 20s. And I'm diving into morning routines not only because I know this topic is often very effective and you guys get inspiration from learning about my routine and other people's routine, but the way I have designed my life, and part of it is the morning habits, is a big contribution to my overall life fulfillment, how I feel on a day-to-day basis, and how I've been able to build my life to the point that it is today. And this is definitely, I think, even more impactful for those of you who have been following me for quite some time now. You'll notice that a lot of these habits and just the things that I do that are part of my morning routine are pretty consistent. And I've been doing this since late college, around senior year. And so in my list, I actually kept it very short and sweet. And these are only habits that I noticed that I actually kept consistent over the past 4 to 5 years. And I'll include other things that I do now or have done throughout my time as I think of them. But for today's episode, I'm focusing on what I've kept consistent over the years. Okay, so first morning habit, and this is, I think, probably the biggest one, is just keeping an early wake up time. This is consistent, and while it's not always the same time every day, it is a very similar time window. So for me, during the week, it's usually somewhere between 6 and 7 a.m. That's my sweet spot. It ranges a little bit depending on the time of week. So Monday through Wednesday or Thursday is usually on the earlier side. And then Friday, I usually allow myself, if needed, to kind of start a little bit later. So maybe the wake up time is closer to 7 a.m. on a Friday, and Monday through Thursdays, somewhere between 6 and 6:30. This also ranges based on what my morning workout is. So if I have a workout that starts at 6:30 or 7, then obviously I'm going to be up very early. But if the workout's at 7:30, again, assuming that's like a workout class, and of course I allow myself a little bit more leeway. But with extra time in the morning, it allows me to just take things slower. And I don't like to rush when it comes to getting ready for the day. So I actually give myself that extra time in the morning to more or less dilly-dally. And that's okay with me. That's just part of how I like to get ready. And so I started waking up at 7 a.m. during my senior year of college, which is why I'm able to wake up that early today. And that's been about over the past 5 years. I'm pretty sure junior year I was waking up closer to like 8 a.m., 8:30, which, is normal for a college kid. But when I was a senior in school, I recognized that in order to make a certain part of your lifestyle actually your lifestyle, you have to start doing it consistently and you have to implement it somehow. And I knew that, thinking back in my college years, I knew that going into work and into the corporate work world, and whether it's corporate or not, I have to be an adult and actually wake up relatively early, probably somewhere between 6 to 8 a.m. depending on what my morning looks like. So that was another reason why I started that sooner, and something I'm kind of hinting at. If you're younger and you're listening, definitely try to get this habit incorporated into your routine. That doesn't mean you should jump from 8 a.m. morning to 6 a.m. morning, but bring it back little by little. That's also something I did too, which is again why I can wake up a little bit earlier now, like closer to 6 a.m., because I didn't go from in other words, 0 to 100. I very much inch by inch brought it back 15 minutes earlier and would do it, over a span of like a week and then 2 weeks and then months. And then personally for me, I like to get my day going sooner than later. That's just how I am. Even though I do flow pretty well in the early evening, I still wake up early so that I can give myself a slow morning, and then I can, again, get on with my day and not have to feel rushed and give myself, 2 hours extra of sleep when I could just slowly wake myself up in the morning. I will admit, though, something that I still struggle with from time to time is going to bed before 11 p.m., which is important to have a good full sleep if I'm waking up at 6 a.m. and that, goes for everyone. So I'm just acknowledging, like, I'm not perfect. This isn't always the easiest thing to do, but I've noticed that the best way to get the wake up time, a little bit easier is actually getting into bed at a reasonable time so that you really get those 7 to 8 hours of sleep, preferably 8, So for me, it's not a matter of watching TV or being on my phone. It's just that sometimes I'm actually still flowing at, 10:30 p.m., which can be a little tough because then I'm like, well, I'm waking up early tomorrow. But again, it's a work in progress. And for the most part, I really try to aim to be in bed by 10:30. And usually I knock out really fast because every day I'm pretty active, whether I'm walking around the city or I am, I've done an intense workout that day, like tennis. I've never failed to just be physically exhausted and just knocking out within minutes of going to bed. So the next thing in my morning routine and habits is working out or some sort of movement and flow first thing. So one of the reasons why I like to start my morning with a workout is because I don't have any makeup on and it's easy to sweat and easier to just sweat everything out and not have to worry about taking my makeup off. Let's say like if I'm doing it after work or at the end of the day, or even if you don't take your makeup off, and you're working out post work day, I sometimes feel like I'm clogging my pores if I do have makeup on and I'm working out. So I really just prefer the morning for that reason. Obviously, I'm going to preface, I know that when I worked in corporate sales and I started my day at 8 a.m., that was really hard because in order for me to get to work on time, I would probably have to do 6 a.m. workout. And that's still cutting it close because even if it's like a 45-minute Pilates class, that's like 6 to 6:45, and then shower and get ready and drive to work. That's tight, right? So I understand if you have tight timing. It just really comes down to priorities. But again, if you have flexibility, try to make it part of your morning routine. I like it as well because it eases me into the day. So I feel like I'm slowly waking up my body, slowly waking up my mind. And that way, when I'm ready to hop on my computer or whether that's like a coffee meeting or a phone call, whatever, I feel like my brain, the engine has already gotten started, And so for me personally, what working out looks like, it'll range between Pilates, weightlifting, tennis, skating, or a long 3 to 4 mile walk. For the walks, I really enjoy, I actually did that this morning, and I enjoy them because a few reasons. Number one, it's just so good on the body to just get that kind of flow out, and 3 to 4 miles. And if you're doing it at a fast pace, you can definitely get a pretty good sweat in, especially if you live in a humid place like New York or Florida. I also love it because it's a great form of catching up with friends. So it's easy to be like, hey, I would text my friends like, hey, who wants to go on a walk, 6:30 a.m. It's just nice. And, you kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And the reason why I switch things up is because it creates a shock to my body. So if some of you guys have been working out for a while, you might notice that if you've been weightlifting consistently, okay, then your body doesn't feel the same fatigue as much unless you are changing the weights heavily, or that you're doing a lot more reps. And so I typically do weightlifting or strength training 2 to 3 times a week. Sometimes 4. And if it's 4, then it's because I didn't do Pilates. And then I get my cardio in through my long, fast walks. tennis for sure, and then also skating, just because I'm no longer training in the way I used to as a competitive figure skater and tennis player. So for me, like obviously running around the court, playing a full match, things like that, it's more or less like a HIIT workout. And I've noticed my body composition has changed over the past year after implementing tennis into my life, and just overall I look and feel a lot better. So definitely something I would recommend to take a look at is just shifting your workout routine and creating a range of what you do in a whole week. Quick piece of advice on working out as well. I know that when I was a senior in college, so when I was 21 or 22, I struggled with consistency. And I remember I had a friend at a time, he advised me, similar to like the wake up thing, you start slow. Okay, so right now if you're doing 2 times a week, only increase it to 3 times a week and get that consistent for 1 month or 6 weeks. So 4 to 6 weeks, get the 3 times a week completely consistent without missing. And then after those 4 to 6 weeks, then increase it to 4 if that's like your desire, right? So for me, I think at the time in college, I was working out 3 times a week and I wanted to increase it to 4. And so that's the exact steps that I did. I went very slow and made sure that I could actually hit 3 times a week consistently, and then once I proved to myself I could, then I increased it to 4. So right now for me, I'm pretty much always, I want to say I work out like 5 or 6 times a week, but again, they're not always intense. It's just part of my lifestyle now. Kind of going back to what I said in the beginning, how I've designed my life is just simply my everyday lifestyle, how it contributes to my fulfillment in life, how it contributes to how I feel on a day-to-day basis. And obviously that's why I'm very wellness and health focused. Okay, so the third consistent habit I've had over the past few years is reading or listening to a podcast in the morning. And the reason why I do this is because I love the feeling of feeling inspired or informed when I'm starting my day. And so the way I incorporate it into my morning, it really actually ranges, because I can't say that I'm always actually sitting down and reading a book in the morning in my apartment anymore, but sometimes I will just walk to the pier near where I live in New York and I'll bring a book and I'll read there. Or if I know that I'm going to be on the subway and heading somewhere later in the morning, I will account for reading on that subway ride. And that's usually like 15 to 20 minutes of reading, and it adds up, you know. Other times, like on a walk to my workout and or just on my long walk in general, if I'm walking by myself, I usually will listen to a podcast, not for the whole time, because sometimes I like to actually walk in complete silence, but then after a while, I will pop on a podcast. So this morning, I was actually listening to a podcast with Annie Jacobson, I believe that's her name, and she's a nuclear war expert, and she just talked all about everything under the sun with nuclear war and understanding the risks of it in general, what that really looks like, and how so many people like myself, prior to hearing her interview, how misinformed or uninformed we are about the impact of something like that happening, and different things like the locations of where some of the nuclear bombs are, or the things that are, I'm not really using specific terms, or correct terms, but just where some of them are located and how we are locked and loaded and ready to go. And as with Russia, and it also happens at a tap of a button, basically, and how the president of the United States, he's commander-in-chief, or he or she is a commander-in-chief. So they have the ability to make the sole decision, and they are the sole decision maker when it comes to launching any kind of nuclear missile. And so, okay, that's just a whole different tangent. But what I'm telling you, if you can't tell from me sharing that, is I love getting to listen to different things that really create a lot of stimulation in my mind. And for me personally, I've noticed this is how I've kept my personal development and my mind growing, because I'm constantly learning about things that I can definitely attest that I was not that interested. I probably ignored this shit when I was in school. If it even came up like in history class or whatever, I wasn't really paying attention. But now, and over the past 6-7 years, to be honest, since college, I've come to understand the importance of expanding my mind, learning things that I might not have been naturally curious to learn about in my late teens, but now I'm more curious and fascinated about. And I don't know, it just gets me speedier. Like I'm just faster throughout the day then, because I'm like, I don't know, suddenly thinking about a lot of deep philosophical things and about life, and especially in the context of nuclear war and what that would look like and how that would impact the entire global population. All of that shit, just makes me, to be honest with you guys, I'm a lot more fucking mindful of how I am towards people on an everyday basis, how I am towards decision making. Also in this case, the importance of awareness on a president's role and how I'm voting, all of those things. So all that to say, I love reading or listening to a podcast that inspires or informs me in the morning. And then lastly, my last and final habit that I have been doing since late college, believe it or not, is actually face rolling with an ice roller. And I love this because it wakes up my face and I really feel a form of lymphatic drainage. I definitely go very specifically into my jawline and all of that good stuff, and I'm rolling outwards down my neck. I also feel a sense of depuffing and helps just with blood flow and circulation, especially again in the morning when I'm still waking up. So I love doing this over my eyes, under my eyes as well. And I know that there is back in the day on YouTube, I would see people do this with cold spoons. This would, I think, just help people, wake up, and other health benefits, I think, or anti-aging benefits. But all that to say, I love doing it. I usually do this in silence, sitting on my bed while I'm starting to wake up. So let's say I'm waking up at 6 a.m. I might do a few cat-cows. It's like a yoga stretching type of position. If you know, you know. And then I'll usually roll my face with a face roller, especially if I'm extremely sleepy still. I will wake myself up with the cold and then go to my workout and start my day. So that is all for my morning routine habits. I will list them again for you guys. Number 1, early wake up time. For me, it's between 6 to 7 a.m. Number 2, workout and movement flow first thing in the morning. That could look like Pilates, tennis, skating, strength training at the gym, long 3 to 4 mile walk, whatever. Just some sort of movement that is consistent. It's part of the lifestyle. That is how you can really affirm to yourself, I live a wellness-focused, health-first lifestyle. Third is reading or listening to a podcast, something to really kickstart my brain and continue long-term stimulation. And then lastly, I love to face roll with an ice roller. I personally use the Skinny Confidential Hot Mess Ice Roller. It is pricey, I know, and I've tried other brands before as well, like just ones you can get off of Amazon. They do work, but I will acknowledge that the ice roller from Lauren Bostic's Skinny Confidential, it definitely has a different quality to it. Not that I would say it's worth that price. So if you're going to buy online, try to find different discount codes or promo codes, whatever. But if you appreciate quality and you like that it stays actually really cold, then I would recommend that face roller. I hope this solo episode inspired you a little bit on what you can incorporate into your morning routine and habits in your lifestyle. And as always, please be sure to send me a DM if you have any recommendations or thoughts on different solo episodes you would love for me to share. I noticed that a lot of you guys enjoy observing and understanding more about my lifestyle, how I have cultivated everything in my life today, and I'm always very happy to share more of that with you guys. Thanks again for tuning in and for having me be a part of your personal growth journey. I will talk with you all in the next episode.